I want to see
So wait, what I'm hearing is that you had a dream related to sex that had George R. R. Martin in it. Yes or no?
Well, technically, yes.
Welcome to the Rewatchers on the pod. What? We watched, damn you guys, we watched Birdman, 2014 Academy Award-winning Birdman.
Whoa.
Oh, my.
These superhero movies, I swear to God.
I'm Mitchell Marshall here along with
Tyler McKinley.
Gwen Hammer.
Tyler Harris.
Justin Hammer.
And this will be a fun one to talk about. And we watched this. Tyler, tell us why we chose this, because of whom.
Well, clearly because of we watched Uncut Gems. We were absolutely stricken and just in sheer delight at the casting of that movie. And we thought, who's responsible for this? Turns out it's Francine Maisler, and she's also responsible for the just stellar casting in this movie. So we're like, of course, we got to check this one out. While we're on this Maisler high, I want to keep it going.
I don't want to ever see a shitty cast again, but I absolutely will. If you haven't seen Birdman or you need a little bit of a brush up, Tyler McKinley is going to go ahead and give us some sort of summary.
All right. A burning ball of fire. Jellyfish fields. we enter John...
No, this isn't the SpongeBob episode. Okay.
We enter John Travolta's bedroom. Satan comments on the room. FaceTime. Emma Stone might be a racist and hates her job. Not Travolta, it's Michael Keaton. His name is Regan Thompson. Regan is a director. Regan is directing an actor who needs a smack in the head. He gets one courtesy of a stage light. Zach Galifianakis is backstage. Regan claims magic powers. Regan turns off the television. I don't know why the fuck I wrote that.
It's important.
It's everything. Everything happened.
Turns out Satan is Regan's inner monologue. Regan is injecting baby pig semen? Don't fuck with crew, their union. Janie E as a replacement actor for Lamphead Guy. Oh, knows a replacement actor for Lamphead Guy. It's Tyler Durden, the real one, not the in the head one. He's a pro, and like most pros, he's an ass. He and Regan rehearse a scene. Edward Norton is the captain now. Theater people are ass people, as in they're into asses. An actress is pregnant with Regan's baby. She is full of mixed signals. First preview makes theater people horny. Mike is drinking real gin. Sorry. Mike is drinking real gin on first preview. Regan replaces the gin. Regan starts his monologue. Mike has an outburst and interrupts. He's mad his gin is gone. Regan wants Mike out and Zach says no. Regan's ex-wife, is backstage and says hi before she takes Sam out to dinner. Regan is a bad listener. He tells a story about George Clooney on an airplane. Regan and Mike take a walk. We see the drummer. This movie somehow makes fun of mainstream Hollywood and pretentious indie nerds at the same time. Tabitha Dickens is the critic to end all critics. Her word is law. They need a good review from her. Regan tries to be a dad. Emma Stone monologue, check. Regan is shook by his daughter's critique of his irrelevance. Dream sequence. Mike gets stage rapey in a real way. Second preview is a hit with everyone except Naomi Watts. Regan's baby mama and Naomi Watts experiment with a new coping mechanism. I guess second preview gets them just as horny as first preview. Cool mirror shot. Mike criticizes the stage gun. He talks with Sam on the roof. They play truth or dare. Laura, the baby mama, is not pregnant. Mike steals Regan's acting story. They fight. Okay, I'm going to pronounce his name correctly, I think. Inarritu has made two of my favorite fight scenes. Here is one of them. Regan wrecks his dressing room while arguing with himself. Zach tells Regan, I'm still calling him Zach at this point. Zach tells Regan the last preview is sold out. Zach's name is Jake. Mike finds Sam on the roof again. Edward Norton monologue, check. Fuck teenagers. Fucking teenagers.
Wait. Man.
Final preview. 24 hours remain. Riggins spots Mike and Sam playing the old ring around the theater. He goes out for a smoke break. He gets locked out, and his robe gets caught in the door. He must make his walk of atonement. He makes it back to the theater just in time for the strangest Hanes commercial I've ever seen. Regan and Sam start to mend their relationship. Regan is drinking and starts talking to Tabitha. Lindsay Duncan monologue, check. Artists are assholes. Michael Keaton monologue, check. There is now piano, accompanied by the coolest spoken word performance added in a movie by a homeless man. Cool pepper light shot. Regan experiences alcohol differently than you and I. The voice in his head is Birdman. Steampunk Bird is actually fucking awesome. Regan stands on a building. People think he's going to commit suicide or a film. He flies. The drums are back. It's opening night and things are going well. Regan's ex meets him in the dressing room again. He is calm and a little too reflective. Regan is about to head to the final scene. He puts on his wig, grabs a real gun, and okay, wow, I read that in the wrong tone. He puts on his wig and grabs a real gun. Mike's gonna be so impressed. Hey, there's the drummer again. Regan shoots himself. He's alive in the hospital. Jake is there and stoked because Tabitha gave them a good review. Regan lost his nose but gained a new bird mask. Sam brings him the flowers he wanted at the beginning. He can't smell them. Sam goes to get a vase. Regan checks out his new beak and flushes Birdman down the toilet. He opens the window. Sam returns to find an empty room. She looks out the window up at the sky and laughs.
So just before we get any further, I do want to bring to attention, I'm like 80% sure that 72% of our audience is theater people. So I'm not saying what you said was incorrect in any stretch. I'm just saying it's good to know.
I did specify that they were into asses, not ass people.
Everybody likes a good ass.
What you said was not technically incorrect. It's just good to know your audience.
Well, our audience would love this movie because, man, some of that one-on-one dialogue was stage conversation off the stage.
Yes.
I don't even know where to start. So this movie, very critically acclaimed, but I feel like to some degree forgotten. It's meta upon meta, and I think that's really how Edward Norton is. I don't think Edward Norton and I would be real friends in real life, which I used to be nervous about saying, but now it's true, Ed.
I don't want to burn any bridges.
I mean, to be fair, after seeing Italian Job, I also wanted to be best friends with Edward Norton. So
that's the best version of him. I love that movie.
All the money.
He's
all
my
the people
third
in
favorite
that movie. I was like, him.
He's
I want
my
to go to
fourth
his birthday
favorite
party.
Hulk. If Lou Ferrigno, Mark Ruffalo, Eric Bana.
Wow.
I forgot his name already.
That knowledge was like at the top of your... You just skimmed that right off the top. That was impressive.
I'm a Hulk historian. I've actually never seen his Hulk movie, and I barely remember the Ang Lee one.
What?
Oh, I was pointing to Justin. I'm back. Eddie Nort. The drums really killed me. But I like him being twisted. I actually watched his two Batman movies a couple weeks ago without knowing this, obviously, because they were leaving HBO Max. And I think I saw them when I was a little kid. Didn't enjoy them.
Thank you.
That's fair.
Also, didn't think Michael Keaton's career was really hampered by those. And he only did the first couple. But yeah, overall, like, it was a lot of actors doing very actory stuff. It's so theatrical within itself, and the one shot and the constant drumming, like, it's trying to do so many things, and it's like artistically successful, but I don't know if it says anything poignant or is really that enjoyable. So I think it's missing two key components, but it's a well executed, very interesting thing. That's my thesis statement. It's kind of bullshit, but it's good.
I give you a D-.
Thank you.
Because this is literally...
That sounds like a theater.
This is literally in my top 10, and I feel like I get a lot of shit for that.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
You should...
Mitchell just
We
shit.
need to have a YouTube. Yeah, I did. I pooped a little. You guys got some wipes?
No, but I mean, like, I get why, like, people don't like it, particularly when it won Best Picture. I had a lot of, like, people on my Facebook feed, especially, who, like, are not into movies, be like, oh, I'm going to watch what won Best Picture. And they're like, this is the worst movie I've ever seen. I'm like, I can get why you think that. But, yeah, I fucking love this movie. I think that it is, I mean, obviously on a technical level, there's some really fun things that they're doing with both the, like, kind of fake one shot they do, as well as the musical score to it, I think are super unique and kind of risky and really pay off, in my opinion. I think that this movie actually has a lot to say about I think there's lots of levels to it. I think there's, what it is being an artist. And like I did mention that artists are horrible people in my summary, but I am an artist. I am not a theater artist, but
So you admit it.
but I think as I've been in the art world and I've kind of like gotten to like step into a little bit of a view of like, just from Tyler being in theater, I've gone to like a lot of theater things, hung out with some of those theater people. I've hung out with painter people. I've hung out with animation people. I've hung out with like a lot of different artists.
We get it. You're cooler.
No, I didn't say accomplished, but like, and knowing myself, I'm like, wow, we're fucked up. And I think this movie has a lot of that in it. Like it's very self-aware in that it's that, but also just being an artist and just giving everything you have to a passion that you want to achieve, and knowing that there is value in yourself, but also being really hard on yourself and struggling to trying to make other people see your own value in that passion or field. And I think that this movie does a wonderful job of exploring that and just exploring things kind of in general. There's like a lot of subtext to this movie too. Like the whole thing at the end where she gives them a positive review, but it's like, he's created a new form of art called ultra realism. I'm like, that's fucked up. Like that's,
If you don't actually bleed,
like,
did you bleed?
but that is so art world thing. Like that, I've seen that so many times in several different fields of art. Like, man, there are some famous painters who I fucking hate. And like, they stop being painters. They start, that's only I'll learn about in art school where they put the toilet in the museum. They're like, yeah, that's bullshit. And I mean, that one was a critique on that, but like
Right.
that type of thing, I agree with that critique. There's a line that is stupid, and there's lots of subtext in this movie, lots of like very personal things, and just performances that are fucking fantastic. Like Edward, obviously, maybe Edward Norton didn't have to do any acting. Maybe that's how he actually like Katie said the exact same thing to me the first time I watched it. It was like, this is probably real Edward Norton. But yeah, like Naomi Watts is great. Michael Keaton's performances. I was not a Michael Keaton fan until I saw this movie. And like we just discussed, I hate the Batman films, and I thought it was like his casting. This is incredible that they got him for this. And Emma Stone, like I wasn't huge on Emma Stone until this movie and realized that she can actually do some cool shit. And just lots of great performances, lots of great messaging in my opinion. But I don't know, I've ranted too long. Someone take it.
I actually enjoy this movie a lot, and I think most of it. I'm a conversations guy. I love when conversations just flow. That's one of the main reasons I like Tarantino stuff, is just because I love watching those characters converse. And this movie, I think, those conversations are things that I feel like have, like, a lot of those topics have been covered in other movies. They've been done in other ways, but I do think the structure and the technique they use to capture that does, like, kind of make those fresh again for me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, pacing wise, I feel like this movie moves quicker than it doesn't feel like 2 hours to me. It feels like it's pulled along by that one shot, and that something about that score I just love. You know what I mean? It feels like it really, like, is this propulsive force to, like, the action, and like I really do love all those builds. And I also appreciate that this movie has some, like, genuinely hilarious, like, very darkly hilarious moments, like that. The conversation that Michael Keaton has with Edward Norton before the fight, when he's got him pushed up against the thing, and he, like, tells that story from his past, and like an incredible, like, if you just pulled that out before, like, that reveal, like, that is an Oscar moment for this movie, right? Like, the performance that Michael Keaton gives, and then it's just completely dashed to pieces in the next moment, in, like, this really, like, shocking but, like, hilarious, like, turn, and all of that. But yeah, I really enjoy this movie. I think it's really fun.
I actually wanted more of the dark comedy. Like, the handful of times I did laugh out loud, because I think the music definitely didn't click for me, and we're talking about the one shot, the music, and then those conversations, because I love the conversations out on the balcony between Edward Norton and Emma Stone. It is interesting to me that this and La La Land, she's also kind of doing this performative realism, and it's two, of her nominated. I'll have to rewatch The Favorite, but it's also interesting that she's just been nominated 3 times for Oscars. But I really enjoyed some of those, but they just hit points where they took me out. And because it was meta, I think it was just always calling back to, well, they know that this guy is like, they call out the fact that a lot of people who do blockbusters earlier in their career might try and bring back a serious element of it and prove something. And so his psychology within that, maybe it just didn't click with me. I didn't find that in him. And then some of those interactions, I felt like they got repetitive as we go through the previews. It almost felt Groundhog Day-esque, like in the way we were moving through those previews. But his progress was really evident. I do think everyone in this is extremely talented.
Yeah.
I also really like the casting. Speaking of casting, because we're here because of the cast.
Let's talk about Fran's work.
That his ex is played by, I don't know her name, Holly from
Amy Ryan.
Mm-hmm. Holly
It's
from
wonderful.
The Office, which I think is. It took me out of it for a quick second, but I like to see people like that among like literally these Hollywood giants. Just everything about those relationships did feel extremely real, which was important to me. And yeah, his whole psychological issues, like I do enjoy all of that, but I just think there was a lot going on and it just never quite clicked to get me to that next level of investment or speed. It did feel like when those became repetitive, I was just waiting for the next preview, waiting for the next show. And I did think he was going to shoot and kill him on stage. And I try not to like predict things. I try and be in the moment, but I like where they eventually went with it for him and his ambiguous ending. There was actually an alternate ending. Did you guys read about this?
No.
I think I did at one point.
This
but
is
I
on
forgot it.
Wikipedia, so I should have fact checked it. But they said he was going to go to his dressing room and Johnny Depp was going to be there. And they were going to have Johnny Depp do a meta moment of his own where he's in his own head, and then it ends.
What the?
Weird.
Yeah.
I'm very glad that did not
I'm
happen.
like, a studio note worked for once because they told him not to do that. But
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I do want to just, while we're on casting and talking about that, I do want to say the casting is the thing that makes this a secret Twin Peaks project, right? Because we do have Naomi Watts, and this is like this came before the third season of Twin Peaks, so it was like the public wasn't able to find that out as they were watching this. But Naomi Watts and Charlie also is in this. Audrey's
That's
right, yeah.
possible husband.
yeah.
And so this is absolutely like, I think that most of this, at least the parts that are on the actual stage are literally taking place in the lodge. And that is really interesting because of what that says about Dale Cooper's relationship to the arm and the evolved arm. I'm writing an essay on it, so I'll read that in a couple weeks. But I just wanted to throw that out there while we're here. I don't want to derail this train
I'm in.
too much.
I buy it.
4-hour Twin
She
Peaks
is-
takedown. Eat your heart out.
Yeah, fuck you.
Naomi Watts is in one of this director's previous films called 21 Grams, which I watched back in the day, and it's a slow, very European movie with her and Adrian Brody, I think. And it's very...
Last name's new tonight.
Yeah, I was
man.
going to say, but we've got
I've
first
got
names
nothing.
and last names here.
He's helping me out. But it's very slow and serious, and they're on drugs. It's called 21 Grams, so... I thought that was... I think Naomi Watts is fascinating because I think she's like incredibly talented, but does some weird shit too.
It's very versatile.
Justin and Gwen, neither of you had seen this going
Correct.
into this, right? What were your thoughts and feelings?
I'm a sucker for anything meta. Like, I just
Sure.
fall for that shit all of the time.
I'm with you.
I love that kind of genre. Yeah. So seeing something like this, and as an outsider, really, for like film and drama, like it just kind of feels good to like get a look. Like, I feel like I'm looking in on something that I shouldn't know anything about, kind of, and just kind of be like smug about it. Like, yeah, you guys are assholes. Like, that's just kind of what it felt like. Like, this is a movie made for me, who I'm a person who loves meta stuff, and I have issues with the Hollywood community or whatever, and all the commentary on that. So it was just like, yeah, this is a fun movie, and I really, obviously the acting and everything was incredible. So yeah, I really, really liked this movie.
Cool.
As far as like personal applications for like my music background or anything, or like being like an artist, so to speak, like I didn't come away with the same takeaways that Tyler has, but it's interesting because like the music actually of this movie really spoke to me and like drove the emotions.
Did
a
it make
lot.
you want to like stake out film sets and just make sure that you were in the background scoring everything live, like in shots, and just in the hopes that they were going to decide to use that?
It probably did the opposite of that.
Okay, fair enough.
I've criticized the music because I didn't enjoy it. Like, it made me not feel good, but it is insanely effective.
Yeah, for sure.
I do.
I do want to note, the first time I saw this movie, Me and my sister went and saw a double feature. We saw Birdman, and then immediately after that, we saw Whiplash.
Wow.
So man,
Lot of-
just a lot of
Yeah,
drums, a lot of drums in my mind that day.
I think I mean to go off that real quick, the drumming in that movie I think is very reflective of his inner head and his
Yeah.
headspace and where it's at and how it is, and that's what I also appreciate. Is my headspace is very much the same way. I'm very disorganized, very. But when you're doing art, you do have to like hit your marks eventually. So it's like there's all this like fucking around on the snare, and then all of a sudden like it hits its time,
Yep.
and like that's what's so cool about it to me.
Yeah. For sure.
But Gwen, what did you think?
I really, really liked it. And you know how the main character, Keaton, Riggin, was like...
I got
Now
you
you
guys.
got Birdman. You got fictional first names, real last names.
You're all on my name tab tonight.
I keep putting an N at the beginning of his name for some reason, and it's just...
Nyquil.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Nugent.
yes. shut
No,
up.
it's pronounced Riggin.
I'm dyslexic, okay? I don't know where the N comes from, but... Anyways, you know how he's going off on the... Okay. You know how he's going off on the critic and saying, like, you just know how to say bad things. You know how to label things badly. You don't know how to express anything positive. That's my problem. I know how to express things negatively. I know how to talk about things I don't like, and I do not know how to talk about things I do like, which is why I'm such a cynical reader. But so I don't have the words to say why I like this movie, but the scene where he gets his robe caught in the door and then has to run through, I felt more anxiety and like elevated heart rate during that scene than I did during Uncut Gems.
Wow,
I was like, he's gonna make it. Come on, dude, you can do it. And then I loved that. And then when he goes on stage with the real gun, I could feel my heartbeat in my stomach. So yeah.
I really enjoyed that. To me, there was such a kick of energy to it, which is interesting as a comparison to Uncut Gems where they inject that so often. It was so effective. Not that there's no other anxious or awkward moments within this because those are intentional, but the way that happens. And it is funny. Like, it is just funny. Although the geography of how he gets around the theater didn't make sense to me. That's a problem for another day.
That is the thing I think about every time. I'm like trying to figure out.
It seemed like he came out of
must be
the
a New
other
York
side of the
thing.
alley, and then he comes around the other
that's
way.
what I thought. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
And then people are, all of a sudden, that guy in the wheelchair who got hit by the thing is now here. I'm like, really? This is the moment when you're going to kind of try and sue someone?
I mean, he's terrible. He wasn't good at hitting his
Yeah.
cues when he was on stage. He's not as good. He's just
was-
as bad off stage.
He was. That's the thing. I always think if I was in that position of power as an artist, if you're a producer and you truly care about the art, but you also have to care about the viability of both the creation of the thing and the commercial availability thing, would you cast a decent guy or an Edward Norton who's psycho, but he's worth it when it comes out? I have a really hard time thinking I would hire assholes, which maybe I would miss out on some performance.
You would for sure.
I definitely want to ask you, just because you've spent the most time in the theater, like,
I also have questions.
Thank you for appropriately calling it the theater.
the theater but the R before the E because we're English. No.
Exactly.
I've seen a lot of plays. I've done enough theater at high school and in college, like, to enjoy it and appreciate some of the elements and get some of the dynamics. But what rings most to you? Because I love that we're one-shotting through this environment. If you've ever watched the behind the scenes, I mean, I've mostly seen these for Rent and Hamilton. Just the way a backstage works, because they have to utilize that space in such an odd way, and then the dynamics of crew and cast. Like, I just want to know what that vibe was to you. What maybe you might have picked up that we didn't.
I guess the biggest thing that stands out to me, and this is again just kind of talking about the acting in the show or in the movie, is it's really hard to, there are those moments where, especially that first read through, like Michael Keaton, you're listening to those lines and you're like, this sounds bad. But that's a thing you always hear in theater. And that's a thing that as a performer, as an actor, you become more aware of yourself doing that, which is I know to put some emotion in these lines, but you're trying to get to those moments where you really connect, which you look at that scene where prior to the fight where that is some fucking good acting.
Yeah.
But to me, the parts in this movie that are even more impressive are when those actors are having to read poorly. You know what I mean? You have to act like you're a bad actor. And that to me is just as impressive as some of those other scenes because it feels so real. And it feels like so many performances you see from, because we see a lot of performances that are not from professional actors, and those are still great. Like those are still fun to go to, but you can tell like there's that difference, and so it's really fun in this movie to see that. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of drama that goes on,
a lot of sleeping around.
The moment I think of the most that I wanted to ask you about specifically is after the scene where Edward Norton tries to force himself on Naomi Watts in the middle of the preview. Afterwards, when they're coming back out to do their bow, and it's like all bullshit. Like, but there's still this. Has that ever happened to you?
I have never had that. I have had moments during curtain calls where, at the end of the play, my character is fucking stoked about where they're at in life, and they are with a person who is absolutely not stoked. And because of that dynamic, like the character dynamic at the end, I did find it my one goal in life to make them fuck up in front of the audience by making them laugh during that time, because it was basically me just clinging with my whole body onto them and nuzzling their ears and stuff like that. And so that stuff, that has happened. I have never gone out and like, also audiences that I've been in place for are much closer, so they would hear me say, "You fucking asshole," as I smiled them down. But yeah, I don't know that I've ever had anything that bad. I'm sure that's how. I'm sure I'm 1 degree separated from people that has happened with. But yeah.
Yeah, I did want to go back to the part you were talking about, like the different levels of acting. I was very like one scene that always impresses me is that first like interaction between Edward Norton and Michael Keaton, where he's like, "Oh, you have the lines memorized," and like it's this crazy rehearsal where they're reading the lines from. They're rehearsing the lines from the play, but then they're also interjecting like real life debate, but it's like strewn in the middle of everything. Know the line, and it's like so seamless and good, and it's just chaotic, and but it flows so well at the same time. And then it ends with that wonderful moment where they're like,
so good.
Oh gosh, I fucking love this is like the epitome movie of like just like monologues and like cool like dialogue exchanges. Yeah. This has some of my favorite of anything, I think.
It has a lot of dialogue too. I would love to read the script for this, because it does feel like those performers, it feels like they were given some leeway as far as like what they were going to say in certain moments. You know what I mean? Because some of those lines do feel so natural that I'm like, I can't imagine writing a line that way, but hearing it delivered that way is like perfect. And so I do wonder how much of that discovery took place, you know, with the actors there and all that. And with it being like a huge meta commentary, almost specifically on Michael Keaton's career, I'm sure tons of that happened after the cast was there and they were like, okay, we're gonna, you know, kind of solidify all these beats and everything.
Yeah, something I really love about the characters in this movie is that I feel like there's a point where most every character at least has a moment where they're like in the right and where they're in the wrong. Like they're very flawed characters, but also not. That's not just the box there, and they're not just the flawed character. You know, like there's arguments where, like the one with Emma Stone, just even in that argument where he finds the weed, like he makes some valid points, but then she throws other ones like right back in his face, and like technically they come out of that scene where no one's a winner or a loser really. And I love the complexity of everyone in this character. They all kind of have those moments. That's kind of the scene that stands out in my mind though, of like, I mean, yeah, as another human, you know, you want to be respected for what you're trying to accomplish. You want the people around you to be like trying to respect, like, this is a stressful moment for me trying to run this play. I wish you would respect that more. But then it's like, you don't fucking respect me because of all this shit, and you're fucking irrelevant, and you think you're higher and mightier and like all this stuff. And so she brings up great points, and I don't know. I really love that scene. Her monologue is what won me over to Emma Stone. And yeah, it's much like what's her name? Anne Hathaway. Hated Anne Hathaway. I saw Les Mis and I sent her an email. I was like, Anne, we're cool now.
That is... I'm the type of person who generally will like I liked Emma Stone in Superbad. I liked Anne Hathaway in Princess Diaries, and it takes me a while to get off the train and then to maybe just find a comfortable station where I can get on and off the train depending. Like, I'm not a lifer for either of those actresses, but I enjoy quite a bit of what
This is the strangest man.
It made sense. It really
no, it does. It's just that's one of the most unique comments I've ever heard in my life.
I just thought, because I used to ride pretty hard for Emma Stone and I'd see everything she's in, and I was like, well, I didn't enjoy like 5 in a row. But she's obviously really good, and I like most of her best performances. But she does have this stage quality to her that works in some things and doesn't work as well in others. But I also thought she was good as a regular teenager. So, and every person's going to take a weird role or one that doesn't quite work for me personally, and that's not important. But yeah, I just with Anne Hathaway, she has some roles that actually she more so than Emma has things that really bother me, and then other ones where I'm like, you have a really unique charm about you.
Sure.
She's really talented.
Can we talk about the close-ups for the monologues?
Please,
Because that was one of my
yes.
favorite things. Just, I mean, it's just something that I noticed, and it was so uncomfortable, and made they were like 3 monologues, I think, that had that same like almost low angle up on their face, and just
Not
made-
flattering at all.
Yeah, like the one with Emma Stone in particular, you could see like every pore, every pimple, and then she like leaned back a little bit, and then all of a sudden she was like perfect Emma Stone again. No, like I
Yeah,
actually
no,
noticed that. It was really effective, and I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
What-
I think one of the interesting things with those two is those close-ups work as this really incredible technical tool as well, because specifically in that scene between Regan and Sam, like you have him delivering that monologue, and like she is like trying to interject that whole time, and then there's an interjection that you can tell the dynamic has shifted, and that's when the camera shifts and you get that really tight shot on her for a very long time for that entire thing. And it's just it feels, even as like choreographed and like clearly put together those shots are, there are those moments that still feel so natural and so organic, like things that you couldn't plan, even though they did, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like it's one of those things where it's like it does feel like I'm just naturally turning and giving my attention to her. It's
like
yeah, it's
it was
really
a
great.
beautiful blend of technical and performative.
Yeah.
The other thing is most of those monologues, except for maybe I shouldn't say most. Actually, I do think the monologues are really high emotion, especially anger. Whereas some of my favorite dialogue that has some extended, almost monologue moments is a little bit more subtle. The angry moments worked really well, and that is hard. I think sometimes actors really like to be angry because it can come off super effective, but it can also expose you as a fraud really quickly if your anger comes off fake. Because when you're expressing that high level of emotion, if I don't buy it, I don't buy it. And between these characters, especially because some of them come a little later, you really are willing to buy into that. And so that brings me back, like, the way that camera moves when those things are going on, it only contributes, it only helps that performer for you to be more invested in them and the arc of their monologue, which that's a pretty difficult, like, it's something you wouldn't even think about. I feel like you could walk out of this movie 5 times and not really see that and not really feel that, but it's the overall effect of it from those individual moments.
I think that's the challenge of kind of an untalked or unseen or untalked about challenge of one shots per se, is that in a normal dialogue sequence like that where there's a monologue, you're usually cutting back to the person being spoke to see reactions, so you're kind of getting a thing. And that's what I actually love about what this movie does, is it's focusing so hard on those close-ups of the person, and then we go back and we see Michael Keaton just kind of defeated. And yeah, it's a weird challenge because that's hard to pull off of knowing which emotion to show when for how long when you're doing like a regular cut up thing. I mean, makes the editor's job a hell of a lot easier, I'm sure, but like being on set, I'm sure, makes it a nightmare because you have to decide, okay, how long do we hold on this? When do we move? Does that movement disrupt anything we're trying to feel or do?
Yeah.
And yeah, so you have no options really for completely still shots in this movie. Everything's at least kind of handheld shaky, even when it's holding on something.
Emma Stone specifically remarked in an interview they did one time a 6-minute shot and she screwed it up at the end by entering at the wrong point. And so she's like, there are these moments. She's like, yes, it's choreographed, but it has to have a certain amount of improvisation and natural ability to it, which speaks volumes about, you know, your cinematographer and everything. And it's incredible to watch because it's funny, this year, 1917 was raved about initially, and then there was like this backlash. I was like, oh, that's a gimmick to do a one-shot. To some degree, yes, but it, you know, especially in a war movie, it gives such a feeling. And to be around this theater where there's a maze of emotions that matches up with that, I think it increases the difficulty, and that doesn't give it awards points, but I don't think someone would do it for, I mean, I'm sure it's been done for a gimmick in a small way, but not in these huge, important movies done by incredible directors. I think that a lot of feeling and merit should go into that because every one of those moves has to be perfected. And it's famous that in 1917, when he does that run across the battlefield and he gets knocked over a couple times, it wasn't necessarily rehearsed that way. And to think that you have to line up explosions during something you can only shoot so many times over minutes and minutes of shooting, like, I really enjoy it. Like, if you're going to do a one-shot movie, it's not going to be a turnoff to me.
Yeah.
I think about those movies that we're talking about, though, is like you said, that is such a purposeful choice that really helps the tone of the film more so than I honestly can't think of a movie that I've seen that's a one shot that is detracted, but I haven't seen that many.
There's an opening shot, and I can't remember what movie it is, but it's a costume drama. I think Keira Knightley's in it. Shocker. But it's a dance party at not a dance party, but a ball or gala or whatever at a mansion, and it's and it follows people through room after room, and a lot of people thought it was cut because obviously this movie was not all done in one shot, but they really filmed it in one shot, and it felt a bit gratuitous to do. I'll Google it before we're done here, and I get why they do that, but it's also kind of fun and kind of incredible, and if that sets a tone for the feeling, if that gives you this ritzy environment that they were in, I'm sure someone will do it. It's like how Netflix has 50 Groundhog Day movies, and most of them are crap. But then Andy Samberg just did one called Palm Springs, and it's really good. And I think people won't give it a chance because people have tried to do the day after day thing. And it's like, just because there's an element of filmmaking that can be, or writing in that case, that's a gimmick. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have merit to make it something really cool.
Sure. There's one line in this movie that I want to address just because I laugh at it every time, but then it made me feel sad this time. Is when after I think it's after that terrible performance where Edward Norton has a giant hard on and tries to have sex with Naomi Watts, but she comes up and when they're in the dressing room and she says, "Why don't I have any self-respect?" And Andrew Rice says, "Honey, you're an actress." Like that the way that line is delivered, everything about that is so hilarious. But man, that's like a thing I've been thinking about a lot lately too, is I feel like, especially within, like, as artists, there can be this level of fetishization of suffering that comes from everywhere. It comes from critics, comes from other artists. That's for your art to be valid, you have to be willing to put up with a certain amount of just absurd pain that the normal person doesn't have to go through, and that's fucking bullshit. Like, it's. Your suffering can prove to be very valuable to your art or things that you do, but it is not what makes your art valid. And especially as performers, like, don't ever feel like you need to put up with bullshit, because it legitimately made me sad this time, and it's always been one of my, like, favorite moments, because I think it's such a, like, at the time I was like, this is such a self-aware and, like, good joke. And it still works on some level that way, but if you're an artist, don't feel like, take care of yourself.
I think
that's an important thing.
I think that's valid for not just art. I think there's lots of things where people's professions, that's something that they kind of wear. Like, this is a little different in the way it goes about it, but I mean, a lot of people in the NBA give Steph Curry a fucking hard time because he wasn't raised on the streets playing at the local park on a chain net hoop that's falling apart, like, who gives a fuck? I mean, you can criticize him for ruining the game of basketball, sure. But I mean, some of these circus shots are entertaining. Like, he doesn't need to suffer to make that look cool. Like, I don't know. It's just a ridiculous thing that I think we see a lot in all sorts of things. I think any sort of, like, also price of success story, like Whiplash or There Will Be Blood, kind of delves a little bit into that too. It's like, I mean, anyway, no, I won't go into that. But yeah, no, it's like people do this with all sorts of things where it's like, even just
mental illness is fetishized.
Sure.
In the same way.
Sure.
Exactly. Yeah. The one I love is when you go into work and you didn't get sleep and you're like, oh man, I only got 5 hours of sleep last night. Oh, you got 5 hours of sleep last night? I got 3. It's like, fuck off. I get it.
Yeah.
Your life's harder than mine. Congratulations. Like, it's all, I don't know. That's a good read on that I didn't think about, because I actually thought a little bit more about that line this time too, but more in the sense of like a kind of like Me Too in Hollywood.
Sure. Absolutely.
Type of way that felt a little darker this time to be laughing at this joke.
Yeah.
Even though I'm sure it was not intended that way.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like that's a thing that even in those communities, there's a lot of talk about sacrifice for your art, and, like those things. If you're not willing to do this, then it's never gonna work for you, like all of that. And it's just, that's a lot of dumb bullshit, I think. Like, it's, it's way more complicated than that.
I mean, that's kind of some of the sub message that we already mentioned at the end of the film. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
for
very
sure.
much like to Tabitha, the critic. It's like that's the only thing that could have caused her to give this play a good review, which is bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, I am art. Like, obviously, I'm on a movie podcast where we talk the shit out of movies, and I do a lot of art, and I criticize it heavily and I look into it heavily. At the end of the day, I always have to remind myself, this doesn't fucking matter. Like, it's the only reason I can do this is because we as a society and an evolutionary scale have reached this point where we're so fucking bored with our own survival that we can just sit here and critique our own pastimes and pretend it matters at all. Like, I don't know, whenever I like get in like a debate with someone about it, and I'm like, look, we're having this debate just for fun. Like,
yeah.
this doesn't matter. Like,
I got into a pretty big fight about what was it, Dumbledore versus Gandalf once, and I had to. Someone got legitimately angry at me.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I wasn't
think
angry,
remember
but I
hearing
did take a
about
step back and be like, let's remember this doesn't matter. And even when we're talking about more serious elements of art, obviously there's real life elements of art, but like when we're talking about movies, it doesn't actually matter.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great part of this movie is the messaging of like, when we do forget that, you're pushing people way too hard in something that is kind of fucked up to do that with, I guess. For things that we literally do for fun is now causing people to commit suicide,
Right.
which really happens, and that sucks. And like I said at the beginning, I think this movie's got a lot of layers you can dig in.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think this movie does require you to dig. I think it's not one of those movies that's enjoyable on like the most.
It's not a superhero movie.
Well, let's not go there.
No, but
like,
I mean, I think I know what you're saying because, like I said, like this is a movie that I came into. I just love good conversations, and this has enough of those that I did enjoy this movie without a lot of the reads that we've talked about the first time I saw it. But I will say, like, that isn't going to carry me into like a second or third viewing. Like there are things that I like that we've mentioned tonight that I feel like are kind of like peeling back those things, and I'm still discovering small little things, and they may not always be intended. That's another thing. Like a director never intends everything that you read into of their movie ever. That's just not a human thing that they can do. And that's why I love David Lynch, is because he's just like, I honestly believe so many decisions that David Lynch makes is just like, I just fucking like it. And like, I think that he's in touch with like a deeper part of himself, that there are a lot of like subconscious things coming through that are really interesting and fun to analyze. And we talk forever about it. But like, at the end of the day, it is like, that's their job. And they're completing a thing, and then they're moving on to another project. And that's what makes it cool, is that I think that you do get a little piece of ownership when you discover things that connect with you in a movie, and like those are always fun,
especially when Reddit upvotes it a lot.
So much. The karma you can can just
don't downvote like it showed.
I do want to ask about the.
I downvote every chode I see.
It depends. What's it with the subtitle of this movie is The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance? You want to explain that to me?
Yeah, let me explain it to you.
We just talked about peeling back these layers. I'm like, I still don't get this.
Well, no, that's the title of the review right at the end. And like, I guess my read on that is just I don't know. I really don't have a satisfying answer for this at all. But to me, it feels like this, kind of when we're talking about like art and movies, there is also this like thing where we're really excited when someone who has never done something before does it for the first time and is really good at it. Like, this person was a cello player and they just directed their first movie and no one can shut the fuck up about it. Like that kind of, like, people get so excited about that. And that's what I always thought of that review of, like, finally this non-artist came and showed what all these all these artists what they should have been doing, which is blowing their fucking faces off in front of audiences. Like, I don't know, that's a really dumb take, but that's
so. If Will Ferrell shot his nose off,
I'd love it. I'd pay $700.
I did want. We were kind of talking about the theater a lot. He did want to film a lot at a theater, and they ended up doing so. and now I'm trying to find the it's the St. James Theater, which is really cool because you saw these other Broadway shows in the background. In fact, the only show I've ever actually seen in Phantom of the Opera is right across the street. But this theater that they're in, where they did some of the shooting, hosted like American Idiot, the producers, Hair, Bring It On the musical, and most recently Frozen. So it's kind of cool that they were able to do all that.
6 of the 7 greatest musicals.
That
of
is
all time.
that is what Edward Norton was referencing. Was like some of the greats on this stage.
It did have The King and I in 1951, Oklahoma. I didn't go back this far before, 1943.
Wow.
My last thought was I just want to tell you guys what movies it beat for Best Picture, because I think there's 2 you could say.
I wanted to look this up. And
I don't know if you tweeted this or something. You said something about how like we look forward to the Oscars, and you and I specifically, the last 3 years I've known you, we've seen most of the candidates, and then we all get together for a party, and it's a lot of fun, and then you kind of forget about a lot of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this beat American Sniper, which is fine. Boyhood,
absolutely.
which I don't care for.
Fine.
The Grand Budapest Hotel, which I think would be really cool if that'd be Wes Anderson's
That was a
win.
good year, man.
Yeah, that was
The Imitation Game, which I haven't seen.
it's fine.
Selma, good historical movie. I don't think it was the best. The Theory of Everything, what the hell? And Whiplash, which I don't think was ever gonna win it, but damn, that is a really good movie.
It's a great movie, yeah.
That's 3 amazing movies.
Yeah.
Nominated.
To me, that is a really, it's a weird crop of movies, but yeah, I just think it'd be cool if Grand Budapest would have.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It also won Best Director, Best Cinematography, and Best Screenplay.
It won a shit ton. And I remember Michael Keaton, the camera was on him as he was walking up from when he just said, "Fuck yeah!" Like right in the camera, like on live TV, and I was like, "Yeah."
Michael Keaton, by the way, would go on to play Vulture, which does not,
I
which
know.
has some Birdman-like
let's
things.
talk
and
about
now
the
he's
most recent rumor is that he's going to be Batman again
Oh
in
my
the
God.
Flash movie they make, which is just maybe it makes this movie even more. I don't know what that does. What a fucking weird.
There's some
weird
really
reality we
cool.
live in.
So I read that book called like The History of Batman the Rise of Pop Culture, or whatever. There's some old man Batman comics where there's like another Batman and Bruce Wayne is the old guy. I think that would be really cool. It'll be interesting to see if he's in Flash, though. I don't know, but I am glad they're gonna probably have to change the actor for Flash.
Are they?
Like I don't remember that kid's name.
Ezra Miller.
I hate him.
yeah.
I hate that he's part of the Harry Potter universe, which is probably going to die too. I hate he was the worst part of Perks of Being a Wallflower. I just don't like that
Who
guy.
is he in Harry Potter?
He's in the Fantastic Beasts movies,
Oh, fuck
so he
that.
doesn't really matter. But he makes them worse.
From the book expert.
yeah.
That wasn't even us saying books are done. That was from someone who sort of likes them
A
sometimes.
little bit. Sometimes.
There's a viral video of him like choking a woman. So
Oh,
while
I
I never
remember
want there to
that.
be anything viral, if he gets canceled, I really, really support that. And maybe in 10 years he'll rehabilitate. But I'm okay with him not being the Flash because DC movies are already bad enough.
I do. I mean, that scene where like you finally see his inner voice come out is fantastic, and it shows kind of like the range of this movie. It's like dark but also hilarious and has all these great moments.
One of my favorite moments is like after that whole like superhero sequence where he flies and then he walks into the theater and then the taxi's like, "What the fuck? Where's my money?" Like he's like, "That guy didn't pay me." Like it's such a great, like it solidifies what the rules of the movie in a really great way that I feel like he could have gotten away without doing that, but that is such a great moment to kind of like.
Which I've met a few
Grab
people who
everything.
still don't understand it. Like even after that,
Sure,
and so like that's what I kind of meant earlier. Was like, it's not for everyone. Like not everyone. Like you do have to dig a little bit.
Well,
like,
and I mean, the ending that we're giving even kind of subverts that idea, right? It's like, because we end with Sam not looking down, but looking up.
Yeah.
You know,
She
and
does look
she's
down
seeing him.
first.
Right.
Yeah.
she's-
And
but-
you can hear sirens,
Sure.
yeah.
but then she looks up.
Yeah.
So,
But
so
I-
I don't know.
I mean, I'm so glad they didn't do this Johnny Depp bullshit because that ending is so incredible to me.
If
Because
they did add Johnny Depp, I would have wanted them just to have replaced Emma Stone and not like Johnny Depp is now Sam for one scene.
I wish I could do a good Johnny Depp impression right now, so I could say, "Dad, I got you those flowers I wanted," but I can't. But yeah, no, I really, really like how it's the moments, the scenes he has with her, and their relationship slowly coming back together, and then at the end, on such like a personal level, like I was mentioning earlier, it's so much about like seeing the value in yourself, not quite being able to achieve it, and then trying to get other people to see it, and at the end, she looks up and laughs and supposedly sees him flying, right? And so she is now seeing the spectacular things he is capable of and sees the quality in him. And so he's achieved his goal of helping someone see that, someone else outside of himself in his head see that after and he's done so by figuratively flushing Birdman down the toilet. Like, he has severed himself from that inner voice that's haunting him and really found someone else to see him, the value in the way he sees himself, which I think is just a beautiful ending.
Sure.
It's
We're
not
gonna
the
have
read
some-
I got on it at all, but
That's the beauty of it.
Wonderful ending to this podcast.
Oh man, next week we're gonna get a lot more of that apparently. I will say, I'm just wondering, did you guys think it was obvious that the inner voice of Birdman was Michael Keaton?
I don't know.
I caught on about like,
I'm trying to remember when
Because
first saw
I
it.
knew
the
it was
way through.
Birdman. I thought from the moment it started, but I didn't think it was Michael Keaton. And
I think that's him in the suit too.
Cool.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
And they
I-
put like
yeah.
caps on his teeth.
I
or
googled
something.
it, and everyone says it is. There's no like official, but like
Yeah.
it is.
I
And I just
can't
didn't sound like
remember
him
when
at
I first
all.
Saw it, if I knew that, did you guys have any thoughts on that?
I just assumed it
I
was.
assumed
Okay.
it
yeah.
was.
I assumed it was, and I was just like, that's too different. Who would
But
they have got?
I
It would have
love
been
that,
cool if they would have gotten like Val Kilmer to do it.
I love that meta of just being the Batman voice
yeah.
of a different Batman than him. This is great.
I loved it that in like his post shooting himself scene, it was Spider-Man versus a Transformer.
Yeah.
Something about that was just amazing.
Oh, the scene when he's naming all the actors that they might get in, like, oh, he's working, and they name real actors who are in, and they're real
Yeah.
franchises. It's pretty funny.
Who are all really good
He's an
actors, but
Avenger
who are
now?
in like
What?
Jeremy Renner, the Hurt Locker guy.
It is.
He's
they,
Hawkeye
like,
in
they don't
Avengers.
quite know who. You know what? I've seen a resurgence of people who are like, "Oh, the Bourne Legacy is actually really good. It's the second best Bourne movie."
Which
Boo.
one is like? Oh, the Jeremy
Fuck
Renner one.
off.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So there are three main
Boo.
ones: the Jeremy Renner one, and then apparently the one where Matt Damon goes back is horrible. I haven't seen it,
Dude,
but-
I haven't seen that one either.
I did see it. And
Jason Bourne.
It's just called Bourne, I think.
Oh, really?
But man, I think after 2, I'm out. Like, I think
I do think the first three are all really good.
The only thing that could win me back in a Matt Damon one is if it is just called Born, but the U is in the U and the E, I guess, would have to be in parentheses, and it's just Born, but like 2 ways, you know?
Yeah, I
I'd be
gotcha.
like, "Fuck you!" I'm
Or
going to see this movie.
re-Bourne.
there is a Con Air kind of moment in that movie where it's like this big, huge Vegas Strip. Like,
Really?
it's like one of those
Yeah,
moments
it's in
where it's
all the
like the
trailers.
Vegas Strip is never that empty. Like,
Except during COVID.
maybe, yeah, maybe.
but yeah,
I just wanted, because in our message group, you brought up maybe discussing just briefly, because I was thinking about it. Diagenic, I think is
Oh,
the
yeah,
word.
diagenic music. Yeah, yeah, I
music.
forgot. I
Yeah.
went- did want
So
to
just
say
just wrap things up.
Yeah.
But I was just curious, like, did anybody think about that or have any thoughts or?
So the reason I thought about this is because I think it's great when it's revealed in this movie that the drummer is just a man in this world. But the two that I thought about are very similar and they're very different. It's not like, oh, there's all of a sudden a band here. But the two movies I thought of were Almost Famous, which has probably the best scene in that movie, comes at a time where all these relationships are kind of falling apart. This 15-year-old boy is maybe realizing that being on the road with rock bands is not what a 15-year-old should be doing. Maybe it's time he goes home. And there's this really just beautiful moment where Tiny Dancer by Elton John comes on the tour bus radio and everyone starts singing together. And it's this really great moment. And then almost an identical moment, but different enough and in a very different movie. In the movie American Honey, which is about a bunch of essentially orphaned or runaway teenagers who are then recruited by a Fagin-type Riley Keough to sell magazine subscriptions door to door, and is a very sad and interesting look into a world I had never before thought of. There's another moment where there's kind of a similar moment where they're all driving this van, and American Honey by the newly renamed Lady A.
Pending. There's a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Pending, yeah, it comes on the radio and they all sing the song and it's this really beautiful moment. But I mean, and then I thought of like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It kind of has something that I would consider that when he's on the parade float.
Would
Back to
you
the Future.
would you consider musicals to be diagenic?
That's a good question. Whenever I think of diegetic, I always think of the source of the music is visible. Now, whether that applies to the person singing the song or if I would need to see the orchestra, you know what I mean? That's kind of that. I don't know. I guess I've never thought about that.
Yeah, this was something that I just kind of got exposed to today when I was like kind of thinking about things, like diegetic musicals and stuff. But I just read some stuff online, and some people don't consider it to be because they think that like a musical kind of like those scenes are like a representation of like the thoughts and feelings of the people that are experiencing those events, and so it's not necessarily the same thing as like actually experiencing the music.
Right.
I mean, you could make that same argument for Birdman, though.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that drummer's really there.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
and I think it's one of those things. Like for me, it's like for the audience more. Like the diegetic thing applies to the audience more than it applies to the people in the.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway,
so would you count? Remember the Titans?
Yeah, I think so.
Sure. Yeah.
Some of it.
There's
at
like
least.
2 months.
Some of
right?
it.
Yeah.
3? Or...
Yeah. I don't know.
Star Wars Cantina Band.
Absolutely.
great.
Fuck, we're done. Holy shit, yeah.
How did I not think of that?
Can I say, I am not a Family Guy fan, but that joke in the Star Wars Family Guy where the Cantina Band is playing that song and then it finishes and they're like, any requests for the next song to play? And then the singer just covers his own mouth. Is like, why don't you just play that same song again? And it's like, okay, I guess we'll just play that same song again. They start playing it. Is like, what? It's like absolutely the best example of a Family Guy joke, I think.
Star Wars specials of like kind of shitty Adult Swim shows.
Those
are
Robot
all
Chicken ones are really great
so
too.
good. I was thinking about that the other day. Just every like little stupid, even like the 2-second ones where it's just Luke and Leia laying in bed, and she's like, "That was so wrong," and it just cuts away.
Well, I think the Birdman conversation is done.
We got on a Robot Chicken Star Wars, so I think we're good to go.
That has ended any other.
6 degrees of separation. We've crossed the line. Tyler, what are we going to watch next week?
We are going to watch Black Swan next week. We're just trying to keep things light and breezy over here. Rewatchers on the pod. Just watching just easy stuff. But we're actually going to be doing that because Gabrielle Mahone, assistant unit production manager on Birdman, was the production supervisor over at Black Swan, and I think we can all agree,
best production supervision in the business.
Just it always felt like someone was watching what we were watching, but they were watching it when it was happening to make sure it was okay for us to watch when we watched it. And that's just great supervision.
Irrefutable.
So we'll be watching Ms. Gabrielle's work on Black Swan.
Black Swan. Cool. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back and do some recommendations. Welcome back. We're going to recommend some shit. Oh, we should keep that as a drop. Just do it every time. Okay. I'm going to go first because I've been gone for a long time, but I'll make this fast. There's a podcast called Origins, and it's a really famous author who does oral histories, and he did the origin. It's only 5 episodes, and it's of Almost Famous. So I don't know if you guys have seen that one. I think, haven't we done that podcast? Didn't we do it with Jordan? And then hasn't it been done again for this one?
No, we haven't done it a second time.
Oh, okay.
But we did, yeah. I'm sorry I'm late. We
Yeah.
did talk about that with Jordan.
Fantastic movie. Like Tyler just talked about that Tiny Dancer moment. And
It was basically
yeah.
that. I like that podcast because we talked about the movie for 20 minutes and then just talked about how fucking awesome music is
Yeah,
for like an
we
hour.
really did.
That's all it was.
But it's a great movie, and this guy, like, I know I recommend podcasts a lot, but seriously, that one, if you like that movie, and you like I guess you have to like the background stuff, but it's pretty amazing.
The bat. I was like,
The bat. Also, sorry to go back to Birdman, but Zach Galifianakis, that was a bad casting choice if we're going to criticize one thing. Okay.
It was yeah. Maybe not the strongest.
My strongest recommendation is for a show called Rami on Hulu, and this is a young stand-up. Have you recommended this before?
Yeah, I think that I talked about it when the first season came out.
Have you watched the second one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, love it.
Incredible. He's this young Muslim. He's a stand-up comedian in real life. He's not in the show, and it's really about him grappling with his faith and really enjoying sex, and crazy shit happens. Like, he's learning to masturbate the same time as 9/11 happens, and somehow the episode is like poignant but also hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't want to
fires
spoil
everywhere,
anything,
am I right?
But
Oh my! What a callback! What a callback!
it's a really good show, and it's short, 10 episodes each season. And then Tyler, I think you did recommend this one too, called Vast of Night.
Oh yeah, the Amazon
Short movie on Amazon. I think it's less than 90 minutes, and it's set in the 50s. It's dark. It's so simple, but it's like sci-fi in the weirdest way. It has some Lynchian vibes, but it's simple. It's straightforward. But like someone, I was listening to a podcast about this movie, and they were like, "Give him money, but don't give him $100 million. Give him $20 million because you think he made this for nothing." If you just let him go to that next level and see like what kind of incredible stuff comes out. So Vast of Night on Amazon.
Some of my favorite like character dialogue, like that main guy in those opening 10 minutes, the way he talks, like you have to like grow accustomed to like the cadence and like it's all really great. I love it so much.
It's not a one shot, but the first 15 minutes of the film, they're really following these two kids going around. She just got her first tape recorder. It's almost done in real time.
Yeah.
As far as like, I don't want to give anything away, but like it is legitimately worth your time, like both entertaining and artistic. And then, I recommended to have me on podcast about sports gambling because you guys really let us down there.
Hey, I mentioned that in my summary. I was like, this is the one time I would give a shit about anything Mitchell would have to say about sports gambling.
I usually like listening to the podcast when I'm not there because like it's just fun listening to my friends talk about something when I wasn't there. And this was the first time I was like, damn it, man, I should have been there.
Did I ever tell you about when I was listening to? Like, it was very early on in the podcast and I wasn't there. So I was listening to the episode I missed, and I was at work, and I was laughing. And my boss was like, "What are you laughing at?" I was like, "Oh, shit, this puts me in a really awkward situation." I'm like, how did I word it? I can't remember. I was like, I think I just said, "It's my friend's podcast." He's like, "You're a really good friend." I'm like, "My friends are funny."
Oh, it's good. This May Destroy You, which is an HBO show, and it's this black British woman who apparently is really famous for giving a speech that was almost like a spoken word thing at the Edinburgh Festival. And
Michaela Cole?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this show is really not for like, it's not right up my alley, and it is pretty dark. It's about her sexual assault experience and her just being a young person having a good time in London. But I think that it speaks uniquely. I hate relating everything back to Fleabag because I know it's like the hot shit of the last couple of years, but it is an amazing, like, this like awesome British black woman and her voice and her story being told in a really incredible way. And my last one's Hamilton because it's dope. It's almost 3 hours, and I did get to see it.
The Hamilton edit for that.
I did. They had to edit it out because it's on Disney Plus. So I also gave my 2 fucks in my own edit. But man, I got to see Hamilton. I was super lucky that I got into a lottery. I flew to Colorado to see it, but I was really far back. So to get to see it up close and the original cast. I know I said I'm not that big of a theater nerd, but I really love seeing live shows, and there's something like insanely enticing. Not enticing. That's not the word. Like just incredibly magnetic and magnificent about that show.
Yeah.
And now anyone can watch it.
To the people that know me that have seen it, would I enjoy it? Because it feels like one of those things that has become so bandwagony.
I mean,
that,
have
like,
you listened to it at all?
One time in your car, in your minivan you were driving, we listened to some of Hamilton.
Okay, there's several incriminating things I'd appreciate if you didn't put on record.
You had a
next
minivan?
time. No, it was a fucking weird time. Let's just.
Like I thought I knew you since Hamilton came out, but maybe not.
No, I don't know. I think honestly, I had also seen it. But there are things in this. There is something about, especially some of the performers, especially the Schuyler sisters in this, who are just incredible. I think it's long. It's over 2 hours.
Because
long.
what I enjoyed about it
It's
when we were listening
240.
to it is you like told me the backstory of like his flight and how he picked up that book.
Oh, sure,
and everything,
yeah.
and I was like, that's fucking hilarious. And this is what?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
It is, and it's a mix between the hip hop and different styles of hip hop and Broadway. A lot of it is true. Like, there's obviously things they leave out. Like, there's a backlash to it because they don't talk about slavery enough. But I actually then read the Hamilton book that inspired him. It's a real long book, let me tell you. But I think I think you could appreciate it. I would almost sit down and expect to watch it in 2 showings. They do have a 10-minute intermission in the movie, but I think if you watch the first 40 minutes, because then you get to my favorite section is helpless into satisfied, which is the 2 lead female characters are my favorite characters by far, and I think that stretch of like 10 minutes is really good. And if you don't like it by then, and you're not like, because by then you don't have an end game. There's not like halfway through Hamilton you're like, well, I have to see exactly what happens with Hamilton and how powerful he gets. Like, there's not really a narrative end goal. So if you're not into it, dropping it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I'll probably try it in segments, probably.
Yeah, I will also say I really don't like a lot of the filmed like Broadway shows that I've seen, just because I think that they lose a lot in the translation between those mediums. But this, I think, is a really great thing to watch because it is a very minimalist like production, like set wise. It's pretty simple, but the stuff they do with it is really incredible. And some of the choreography.
Is it that way normally or just for the film?
No, it's when I saw it in Salt Lake, it was the same set. So it's like they have a turntable that they use kind of in the center of the stage, but then it's just kind of this balcony and a very simple like wooden.
They'll have like
backdrop.
ad desk once in a while.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about this is I obviously saw it from far away, and I heard that's the thing, because it's rap and because it's dealing with these historical and these relationships that advance. I love listening to it because I do catch new things every time. I might be close to not figuring it all out by having heard that, but the movie also kind of cheats for you. It helps you really zoom in on what matters, which you're going to miss some of the ensemble dancing, that sort of thing. But I think they did the best you can do with turning a Broadway show into a movie. And I think because this one's for the masses, I'm glad they did it. I'm surprised they did it. Obviously, this was meant to release a couple years after this, but it is the original cast. They even brought back Jonathan Groff, who's a really famous Broadway guy. He wasn't supposed to be there anymore, and they swapped him back out. So I think it's a really good use of time, and especially if you're like, I'm never going to pay to see it, because like for me, I will absolutely try and see it again live. Like, but I'm glad anyone can kind of access it, because there are a lot of people I think who love the album who probably would have gone their whole lives without seeing it and not felt too bad because it's good. But yeah, I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, that's great.
That was long. Who's next?
I've got a short one, so
Do it.
all right. So I've got more of a follow-up than a recommendation. But first, I learned a new word, and I wish you all to know it. Chuckle fuck.
Where did you hear this?
Saw it on Reddit.
Oh.
I was like, I feel like
I
hint
have heard
of
this
dad energy
Can you
behind
use,
that.
can you
Like,
use it
where'd
in a
you hear that
sentence?
Oh, no, it's more
I'm
like I
so
feel like
bad
I've
that
seen
she
that
called
before.
it a chuckle fuck.
That's contextualize this for me a little bit.
What a bunch of chuckle fucks.
Okay.
So it's
I was
like an
sorry.
insult then.
I was thinking more of it was
It's
like.
time to go record my podcast with my chuckle fuck friends.
Okay.
There you go.
You guys got a different read on it than that. I thought it was like your 4th grade teacher's trying to be serious, but they say a word that you all think is funny, so now you're like trying not to laugh, but it turns into a chuckle fuck.
It's like a communal chuckle. To Freudism or something.
The Joker incited a chuckle fuck.
Now it sounds like an orgy. I'm in.
Wait, was that it? Was that your recommendation? Was chuckle fuck?
I just wanted you to know the word. But follow up to my recommendation from last week, The Burning White, which is the 5th book in the series I was reading. It ended. The final battle was really great. Watching the teenagers who had grown up through the series run around this island and do amazing things was fantastic. And the way that one of the big question marks of the series was resolved was just, like chef's kiss. It was great.
Oh, good.
But
It was not
Oh,
a chuckle
here it
fuck.
comes. Here it comes.
But the other big question mark, it had to do with the deity of the series. And the answers surrounding it just kind of devolved into amateur hour apologetics, and it was really bad and really disappointing. Yeah,
They
like
chuckle fucked it away.
yeah.
I'm going to use that word in every context.
Every context.
Remind me, what's the name of that series?
The Lightbringer.
The Lightbringer. That's right. Okay. And was that the final? Is that
That
like
was the
it's
final
over?
one. Yeah,
Okay.
it is done now. It left. There's one bad guy who got away that seems like they could open it back up, but
Can you give us the elevator pitch of the series? Because I feel like you've talked about this, but I don't remember.
okay, magic system, great political drama.
I watched a really shitty Netflix show called The Order. Sounds just like it.
Yeah, there you go.
Sounds just like.
That one has been advertised to me so heavily recently.
Me too. And so I was
Oh
like,
my
I'll watch it.
God.
And I thought it was just one season, and it was pretty bad. So I did it while I was I'm applying to grad school. Fun fact, I hate myself for it, but I was like, I need something on the background, and then I found out it was 2 seasons in, and I'm like, how did this just start popping up?
I've only just heard about it.
Yeah. I
So
thought it
10
was
episodes
new.
turned into 20, and I couldn't stop it.
Wait, is that the one with Charlize Theron?
No, she has a movie right now called The Old Guard that even I don't want to watch.
Oh, yeah, the Order. Yeah, okay, yeah. I keep thinking they made a movie with the Order, the video game, and then.
Man, I'm also not interested.
I mean, I like that setting.
Yeah,
They do good
I
stuff.
didn't like the game at all, but
Was that the one that was like 4 hours long? It was
yeah,
like
it was basically
PS4 release game almost.
Yeah,
Like, okay,
it
yeah.
felt like I was like, I guess if they're trying to play on my nostalgia of loving the structure of PS2 games, they nailed it. But yeah, not a great game.
But 4 hours is for like a $60 game
Yeah, not
compared
great.
to. Oh, that's
I'm pretty
rough.
sure I got the platinum trophy in 5 hours.
just by completing it.
Just by completing it, essentially.
Way to go.
I might have picked up 2 journals.
Oh.
I don't know.
Did you have anything else, Gwen?
No, just I guess I've been rewatching Parks and Recreation, and it's lovely.
Oh, great.
I realize I've only watched it all. I've only seen that last season once, so I'm excited to watch it again sometime. Tyler McKinley, what do you got?
So I got a couple things. I watched a mini documentary, one of the Vice documentaries that I never really fucked with before, but I'm glad I did. It was just I watched the whole thing like on like the regular Reddit like feed. Like I didn't
Like
click
on
into
your
it.
phone?
Yes. Wow. It's 25 minutes long, and I was like, I'll just dabble in this, see if I want to like watch it later. Or
Have
like,
you heard of Quibi? I think you would love it.
Even I hated Quibi.
I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing it that way. I wish I would have just like, I didn't know when I was gonna fully commit, and then I was already like 18 minutes in. I'm like, I'm gonna just fuck.
What was it about?
Anyway, it is pretty recent. I think recently released. It's a mini documentary on the song "It Wasn't Me" by Shaggy.
Okay, yes.
And
I've seen other 25-minute things on this.
I have a story about the song It Wasn't Me by Shaggy involving my mom.
I thought you were going to say your ex-wife, and then you went a step above.
Here's the thing, I just want to show this really quick. Sorry, I don't mean to derail your
No,
thing,
I
but,
wanna hear this.
So I don't know if you remember Now That's What I Call Music.
Yeah.
We
Yep.
used to get those all the time growing up.
Oh, no.
And on one of those collections, the song "It Wasn't Me" by Shaggy was featured. Now, if you haven't heard that song, it's got this very like kind of like reggaeton like beat underneath it. It's very catchy. Anyways, my mom fell in love with this song. And I remember we were on a road trip to visit my grandparents in Arizona that finally, like me, a 13-year-old was like, "Mom, do you know what this song is about?" We listened to that song for the last time immediately after that, and I have never really listened to that song again. But anytime it comes up, I always make sure that we bring it up to my mom because it's one of the funniest stories that I have about my mom, and it's really great. She loves that song for like
How did she
6
not?
months.
As someone who I don't always like, I get listening to music without really hearing the
Yeah.
lyrics.
but it's so explicit.
What
Yeah,
I mean,
it
he's
is.
literally banging on the bathroom
And
floor.
Okay, but me as like a 13-year-old was, imagining them like trying to get out.
That's what I thought it said when I was a kid. When it was popular, I was like, I thought it said door, and so I was like,
yeah.
oh yeah, if they just
Does it not say door?
get out of the bathroom, I
Lord.
got a shit, like it's what I thought was happening.
Yeah,
Wasn't
so
me.
my mom also thought the same thing that 13-year-old you guys thought.
Okay.
The
all
problem
right.
was
Were
that
we
she was my
13?
mom and I was 13.
I don't know.
I thought
mean,
that was
this
like
is-
way
It's
older
about
than
that time.
This is when, and now that's what I call music. Like, it was current as it could be, but I mean, it wasn't the internet.
I think my dad saw. I remember. So I have a memory about that too. I mean, it's not as interesting as yours, but I remember my dad was like, I was like trying to go to sleep or something, and I heard I heard on the TV like that song was playing. I don't know if they did like if it was like a Letterman like performance
Sure.
of it or something on late night or something. But I just heard my dad like listen to like a couple minutes of it, and the TV turn off. He's like, I can't believe the stuff they show on TV these days.
Oh man, you want to know what my dad's that exact quote was?
Oh, no.
During School of Rock, when he goes in the bathroom, there's people at the urinal, and you see their backs, and he's like, "What did they show in movies nowadays?"
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh shit, we're in for a ride.
Anyway, tell us about the documentary.
Tell us what else about.
Well,
this
I mean,
song.
I think it's fantastic. Everyone has the stories about it, 'cause that's why this documentary is so interesting, because we all know that song. It was fucking huge.
Yeah.
This song was insanely huge, and with how explicit it was, they actually don't dive in too much in the documentary of like any backlash they may have gotten from how like, which I was surprised they didn't. But the rest of it is actually really interesting. It was not supposed to be a single. It wasn't supposed to even be on the album. In fact, it was at the vocals you're hearing are all demo vocals, and they put it on at the last minute after the album art had already been printed, so they had to reprint and change the track listing.
Wow.
And yeah, it's just a very the guy sing like he's not even a featured artist on it. The other singer who's not Shaggy
Oh,
is like his name's nowhere on it. And
Is he the guy with the weird voice? Wah, wah, like the Waluigi sounding voice?
no, that is Shaggy.
That's Shaggy. Okay, I got it backwards in my head then.
Okay, I'm gonna try to do my best Shaggy impression. I'm really bad at impressions, right? Never mind,
There it is.
You beat me to it.
And then Nintendo bought his likeness and made him good at tennis.
But anyway, that they get that guy and they interview him. They interview Shaggy. They interview the producer mixer. They interview the other singer, and then a couple other people. And yeah, the guy who's singing those lines is the most nerdy, like kind of wholesome dude who's just really innocent. And they go into that. He's like, we're writing this song, and like Shaggy would write a line, I'm like, you sure we want to say this? And he's like, because this isn't me at all.
Right.
And then yeah, so it's like demo vocals. The reason it's on the album is kind of the middleman between the record company and the studio was had come in randomly when they went out to lunch and was listening to some of their stuff, and he heard that song and was like, and they came back in while he was listening to it. They like turned it off. They're like, our manager doesn't like the song. It's not going to make the album. And he's like, you need to put that on the album. Finish it. And
Wow.
they finished it. Then they took it to the record company. They're like, we hate this whole album. There's like they submitted it for a single, and they sent it back. They're like, there's no singles on this album. And so they hired, I can't remember who it was, some Grammy-winning producers. They paid them $250,000 per track to write them like 3 songs. And they used one of those as singles and just bombed immediately. This album was then dead. And this DJ on a radio station in Honolulu, I can't remember how, he for some reason wanted the album. He tried to contact them. They're like, no, we don't even print the album anymore. Like, you can't get it. And so he goes onto Napster and he downloads this song and he plays it, and he says that it was like an overnight success for his station. Like, he was playing it 10 times a day, and it was just crazy. And he said, I was the only person who had it, like, in the only radio station in the world, because they were on tour at that time. I mean, I'm telling this whole thing, I got to stop, but like, it's so fucking fascinating. They were on tour, and like, their tour was going horribly, and then that happened in the middle of the tour. And the next stop in Albuquerque, New Mexico, they said they played that song multiple times because they couldn't hear themselves play it because there's so many people.
That's amazing.
And then that shit just took off. It's a fascinating 25 minutes. I highly recommend watching it, especially if you have like any sort of personal experience with that song.
Yeah, I need to check that out.
And what else? I started playing Resident Evil 7, which is the first Resident Evil game that really took a turn. Like, they kind of changed things up significantly. They went first person. And at the beginning, at least, it feels like, oh, they're taking themselves a lot more seriously. And then something happened semi-early on. I was like, oh, maybe we're not taking it.
No, here's Resident Evil. I found it.
I was like, maybe we're not taking it that much seriously. But it is terrifying as fuck. I have only played an hour of it and I've played it 3 times. So the very first time I played this game was at Tyler Harris's house.
Oh, when you got very sick.
And this was my first time ever playing VR. And I played the PSVR, and I then learned I cannot play VR. My body's not ready for it. I am not reggy.
Your spleen isn't big enough. That's where the VR muscle is.
But yeah, I was playing the game at Tyler's, and I was honestly gone. I was pretty much unconscious for half of that. Like, I wasn't really there. Mm-hmm. And then it got to the point where like I came back into my body enough. I was like, I need to take this off. I'm gonna throw up. Like, so yeah, and that was a horrifying game to play for the first time. So like, yes. You're going around this house in Louisiana, and it is just terrifying. And playing it on the computer now, at least I can like stop and look at my door to make sure that no one's like sneaking in. But it is so cheap in how it crafts its scares, but it's very effective and a lot of fun that way. If you like horror games, I'm only an hour in and I highly recommend it. I don't know where it goes. I can't speak for the rest of the game, but yeah.
I will say it gets more Resident Evil-y.
Does
it? It's like, oh, I'm looking for a piece of a thing to put in a spot so it unlocks a shotgun for me. And that's what I love that about it. Is
yeah. Well, like that, there's a part at the beginning where like you notice a fuse box as you're looking through the house for the first time. And there's like a fuse missing. You're like, I'm sure I'm going to have to come back to that later. When it does come back, it's like, oh, fuck. Like, that's the last place I want to go is that fuse box.
I'm pretty sure you made me play that in your basement one. I don't know if it was that Resident Evil, but a VR on PS4 Resident Evil, and there's some grandma woman that like crawls out at you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good. It's living. Yeah, nope.
Yeah, it's a fucking nightmare of a game.
And like at the beginning, I'm like, oh yeah, this character's a lot more relatable than any of those, because like he lifts off the lid and there's a cockroach that climbs on your arm, and we both at the same time said, oh fuck. I was like, oh, but then from there on, this guy starts reacting to things very differently than I would react. But anyway, I'm done with that one. I did rewatch the first half of Doro de Horo again.
This is what I'm going to talk about.
I was going to talk about it too. I only watched the first episode, but man, fuck, I am into that show.
I watched the first 6 episodes again just because like I'm so desperate to be in that. Because honestly, the narrative, it's good. Especially I realized this time watching it through, the first half is like really sloppy, but a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But just the world building in that is so fun to be in and so unique, and the tone of it. Like, so I'm reading the manga now, which I've never read a manga before in my life. It's been some adjusting, and yeah, I'm glad I watched the show first because I don't think I would have given those characters those voices reading it. And I fucking love his Kaiman's performance in that. Yeah, I can't rave about that show enough. It's definitely not for everyone, but what I said last time of how I pitched it to Tyler is all I can say. Like, that's the tone of the show is so weird and gritty and bizarre, and if you like that shit, then watch this show. And yep, I think that's it for me.
Cool. Justin?
I was just gonna talk about Dorohedoro. That's what it's called, right? Dorohedoro. I feel like I'm missing a syllable.
Dorohedoro, yeah.
Okay. Maybe it's because when I hear it in Japanese, it sounds like there's more syllables
really
or something.
Fast,
but just the very first, like, I mean, you pitched it to us and I watched it, and the opening scene and then like the credits, like it goes to like the opening credit roll, and it's just like, I can't remember her name, the character's name. It's just like this shot of her like cooking dinner or something, but it's
very
insane.
Psychedelic.
Oh yeah, and then like the Kaiman character is like marching through the back, or like multiple copies of himself jumping off out of a window, splattering and paint on, like, it is a fucking mess and so incredible. Like from that moment on, I was like, I'm gonna watch all of this. I think I can't remember. I'm 4 or 5 episodes in, I think. Yeah, the Night of the Living Dead episode was really great. So I'm excited for you. Like, I'm only a couple episodes ahead of you, but man, this is a lot of fun. I'm so glad you recommended this, and I had actually added it to my list forever ago. I guess like when I saw it, I was like, yeah, I'll check that out sometime. But I'm loving it.
Yeah, I forgot to mention the intro last time. The intro is probably my favorite anime intro ever. The part where it goes into like the breakdown and she's just like drum sticking, like double bass drumming these like machete knives is so stupid. I love it.
And it's like the tone of it is like not what I was expecting at all.
Also,
but in
like
such a good way.
The animation style, there's something really pleasing about it. Yeah, it feels like it differentiates itself from a lot of other anime for sure.
Yeah, it does I feel like sometimes it does that weird 3D hybrid thing.
Yeah.
But it looks more seamless than it usually does.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Tyler, did you have anything in addition?
Yes, I do. So I finally saw some new movies that came out in the year 2020 that are only available through your own TV, which is weird.
Did you pay for these, or are these more like streamers?
I did pay for them. There are ones that these are movies that I wanted to see, definitely. The first one I saw was King of Staten Island, which is the Judd Apatow
really
movie
watch this
with
one.
Pete Davidson. It's very autobiographical. I really enjoyed it. I'm really a sucker for like autobiography, you know, where the subject of kind of this is in the movie. It's really touching. It's really funny. I don't really like Pete Davidson on Saturday Night Live that much, but his story is really fascinating and a really unique kind of journey that he takes, and it's really well written. Bill Burr is in it, and Bill Burr is a great actor. He's really good. Like, I feel like even like the bit parts he has in like Breaking Bad, like he can do it. He's really good. Anyways, I definitely recommend that. The movie I would really, really, really recommend though is called First Cow, and it is a movie. I don't know. Have you seen?
I remember
I've been
seeing
hearing
the,
about this a
the
lot.
preview for it last year, maybe or
Sure,
something.
yeah. I think A24 has been like advertising for a while. I remember
yeah.
seeing it around the anyways. But yeah, it's really great. It's an extremely touching movie about two guys who are just trying to make a living in Portland, or not Portland, but like Oregon in the early
At the end of the
1800s.
trail.
Yeah, and it's a great story about like immigrants in America at that time, and it's also just a really like wholesome, good story. And I don't want to say too much about it. It's kind of good to just go into and enjoy. It's a really fun movie to watch. It's not super long, beautifully shot. All the performances are wonderful. The director, I was going to look at the director, Kelly Reichert, before I came in. I totally forgot to, but I'm going to definitely be looking into their
I think this is only
filmography.
like, I think it's either only her third film or she just hasn't done one in a decade. But I listened to an interview with her about this, specifically about she loves to shoot outdoors, and she's like, we like almost froze to death during this, and she's like, I still had no budget because I didn't want to do anything.
Yeah.
So it sounds like she's an artist who is like, F it, I'm going to do whatever I want for the art, only for the art.
And this movie is really beautiful. It's really great. So yeah, I definitely recommend that. I also want to just real quickly recommend a YouTube channel that my brother actually introduced me to called Accented Cinema. It's a Chinese YouTuber who analyzes Chinese cinema and Chinese animation and like a bunch of just stuff like that. But he makes these really great film essays. The first one that I watched was actually about the movie Ip Man 4, where he talks about how Ip Man 4 is like a really incredible portrayal of real world racism, and compares it to Ip Man 2. And his whole thing is like, Ip Man 2 and Ip Man 4 are basically the same movie, except for the characters in Ip Man 4 are like, it's highlighting like real racial tension and like a really great depiction of how racism actually is perpetrated and like how it grows in people. And anyways, he's got a really great channel, and reading through the comments on some of his videos really bummed me out. But he's making really great video essays, and I've been watching those. They're really great. Talked about Doro Hedoro. I watched Joe Pear Talks with You again this week. I'm going to keep recommending it till the end of time. And then the other thing was I downloaded Diablo 3 on my PC, and I'm putting like my 700th hour into it. It's fine. It's a great video game. Everyone should find a podcast that you want to listen to and just turn your brain off as you maximize your DPS and just click in those skills. Oh, man, it's good. Diablo 3 is great.
I mean, aren't there a lot of people who hate Diablo 3?
I mean, here's the thing. Diablo 3 is a great redemption story in the world of recent video games, because when it came out, it had like a real world market where you could sell items that you'd gotten for real money, which was fucking weird. But that I didn't play that game until it was released on consoles, which was after the first big expansion. And I know that since then, that game has a pretty great community. It's got, of course, the people who are going to complain about it all the time, but they're still going to put 300 hours into it every time a new thing drops.
Best type of Steam reviews.
Yeah. But, man, I really love that game. And it made me really excited for Diablo 4, and I was like, man, they announced that. It's probably going to be soon. That game might never come out. But that's fine, because Diablo 3 is really great. And it's on sale a ton. You should check it out. I own it on the PlayStation 4, the Switch, and now my PC. So, fuck. Great Switch port. That's it. That's all I have.
I feel like video game development hell is pretty bad. Like, when we talk
Yeah.
about those books that we're waiting for, like, obviously Thrones is like this massive piece of culture. But I feel like just because I watch so much coming movie stuff, I see the coming video game stuff. And then every once in a while, they'll be like, yeah, we announced this game like 4 years ago and it's never actually happening. Or it's now with a new studio and it's going to come out and be bad.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Anytime it transfers studios, you know it's fucked.
Yeah, there's some great documentaries kind of about that.
Yeah.
Like, I think I've mentioned No Clip on the podcast before, but he recently did like this huge thing on Arcane Studios, who made like Dishonored and Prey, but he just had this huge scoop of like getting footage of a Half-Life game that they were working on that like never came to light and no one had ever seen. There's a ton of that stuff is really fascinating. There's a lot of stuff that people work years on that just never happens. It's wild.
it is. And
Left 4 Dead 3.
my thought is always like,
Yeah.
if technology jumps every 2 years, like, if you're working on a game for 10, like, they're like Diablo 2 and 3, I think Doom also did the same thing where there's massive gaps between 2 and 3. Remember Fable was a big game for the original Xbox, and Fable 2 like came out like 10 years later. It's so weird to me how they must be constantly also updating and paying these people to work on that game for all that time.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a side thought. Next week we're gonna watch Black Swan, and it's gonna be dope. Tyler, if people want to find us on the webs or net, where would they do that?
You can email us at rewatchersonthepod@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram and Twitter at rewatcherspod.
Don't sound so excited about it.
Oh, that was the recording. I didn't even-
Yeah. Oh, I forgot we're throwing those drops in now.
Yeah.
Sweet. This has been Rewatchers on the Pod. I've been your host, Mitchell Marshall, along with my co-hosts.
Tyler McKinley.
Gwen Hammer.
Tyler Harris.
Justin Hammer.
Bye.